Do you have to feel your affirmations in order to manifest? This is what we're going to be covering in this video. So, last night, I did something very interesting that I've always wanted to do, but I just never got around to it, and that was looking up Neville Goddard's human design chart. So, if you don't know who Neville Goddard is, he is one of the pioneers, one of the proponents of the law of assumption, which is essentially manifestation, right? It's a school of thought regarding manifestation, and a lot of people, anyone really who talks about the law of assumption, who talks about manifestation in this particular school of thought, will mention Neville Goddard at some point. So I looked up his human design, and it was interesting because at first what I was seeing wasn't matching up with what I know about this man. So if you have seen my video about human design and manifestation, then you already know how I view manifestation through the lens of human design. And I was looking at this chart, I was like, this ain't matching up. Wait a minute, am I wrong? But then I found exactly what I was looking for. I found the one thing that tied it all together. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. So hello, my name is Ebony. If you are new here, I'm a human design reader, expert, and coach. So the first thing that we're going to do is break down Neville Goddard's human design chart. Now, disclaimer, I am not going to show his chart in this video. We're going to talk about a few different elements of his chart, but I personally do not show people's charts publicly on my platforms without permission. I think that's kind of rude. Even celebrities, like if I talk about their charts, I will not show them. But I am a nosy bitch. All right, so I'm gonna look. I'm a look. But I'm not gonna, plaster that information on my platform. However, if you're also a nosy bitch, you could look. I can't stop you from doing that. Like, it's there, But I'm not going to post his chart on no. But what we're gonna do is analyze the different elements. So, starting with his Ajna center. Neville Goddard had an open Ajna center, which means it was undefined, and he didn't have any defined gates in his Ajna center. This tracks because, again, if you've seen my video, then in my opinion, people who have an undefined Ajna center, those are the people who really, really thrive with repetition, because having an undefined Ajna center means that things are constantly, coming in and out of your brain. You're very open-minded. You're constantly forming new beliefs, right? So repetition, in order to form a new belief, is really important for people who have an undefined Ajna center. People who have a defined Ajna center, these are the people who can just decide that something is true. They can just decide to believe something else and it'll stick because there's definition there. So they might have to do some shifting around their beliefs, but once they decide that something is true, there's no change in their minds. Like, that belief isn't going anywhere. So that's how I see manifestation in terms of the undefined and defined Ajna center. So Neville Goddard was a big proponent of repetition. He's constantly saying in all of his, his lectures and his books, staying in the state of the wish fulfilled. Repetition. Okay, so he was big on repetition. He has an undefined Ajna center. That tracks for me. Okay, cool, great. Now going on to his spleen, which is our physical awareness center, right? Neville Goddard had an open spleen as well. So the way that I see that, well, in general, the spleen is our fears and our intuition. So if you have a defined spleen, you have a very strong intuitive voice, but you have recurring fears that kind of, play again and again in your head, right? I have a defined spleen, and my two recurring fears are the fear of inadequacy and the fear of not being perfect. So those are two fears that I deal with constantly, right? However, if you have an undefined spleen, you are essentially fearless. When you experience fear or physical anxiety in that way, you're normally picking that up from other people. Those fears are not yours, so you can choose to release them at any time. Now, Neville Goddard had an open spleen, which means he didn't have any defined gates. So he wasn't really predispositioned to pick up any fears from anyone. This man was literally fearless. So in his books and his lectures, he's always like, circumstances don't matter. It doesn't matter what your 3D is showing you. It's going to change. He didn't have that fear, or if he did have fear, he was able to release it very quickly because he didn't have that definition in his spleen. So I don't want to say it was easy for him because I didn't know him, but I would assume based on his human design, it was easy for him to say, no, I don't need to fear that. I know it's going to change, right? I know it's going to be different because I am in the state of the wish fulfilled. I don't need to be worried about this thing. I don't need to be scared of this thing. I'm good. No, try again. We're not doing that, right? He was basically fearless. So for me, this tracks, right? Because if you have an undefined spleen, your main focus when it comes to your undefined spleen is releasing your fears. I don't need to fear that. That fear is not mine. I can release that. If you have a defined spleen, it's more shifting your fears, right? If I know that my awareness is what creates, then I don't need to be afraid of, not being good enough, because I know regardless I am a creator, and whatever I'm putting my awareness on is what's going to create my reality. So I don't need to fear that. I can, the fear is there, I can see it, but I don't need to let it rule my life, right? So those are the differences between the undefined spleen and the defined spleen when it comes to manifesting, okay? So that tracks again, right? Dude was fearless, he didn't give a freak about no circumstances because he was basically fearless, right? Now, the issue for me came up when I looked at his solar plexus, because again, in my video, I said that feeling your affirmations is more for undefined solar plexus people rather than defined people. Because in my opinion, if you have a defined solar plexus, you're feeling something all the time. You're either feeling calmness, neutrality, or you're in that emotional wave. You're in a high or a low of that emotional wave. So feeling for you is not something you need to focus on because you're constantly in some kind of feeling. It's more for the undefined solar plexus people because our emotions are in response to something, right? I have an undefined solar plexus. So when I'm manifesting, I focus on how I'm feeling. I feel into my affirmations because that's how my emotions work. They are in response, right? I pulled up this man's chart. Y'all, he has a defined solar plexus. I was like, oh shit. So wait, if he was all about feeling, if feeling is the secret, he believed this so strongly that he wrote a book called Feeling is the Secret. If feeling was so big for him and he has a defined solar plexus, oh shit, am I wrong? Was my theory incorrect? I was like, that's crazy. But then I figured out what was going on. Okay, so before we get into that, I do want to let you all know that I am currently enrolling for my group program, Ready for Love, which is basically me taking through your entire Venus sequence so you can learn how to cultivate and attract healthy and harmonious relationships through the lens of gene keys and human design. The program is self-paced. It is 12 video modules and you get 2 bonus Q&A calls with me. So if you are interested in that, if you are interested in learning more about your Venus sequence, I will put the information for the course down below. And let's go ahead and get back to the video. So, when I looked at Neville Goddard's chart and I saw that he had a defined solar plexus, I got a little nervous because that means that my theory about defined solar plexus people and undefined solar plexus people may not be right. But then I looked at his cognition. Neville Goddard, his cognition, which if you don't know, in human design, your cognition is your strongest sense. It is the thing that prepares your body, prepares your cells to receive nourishment, right? It's talking about food really, but we can apply this to information, things like that. His cognition is feeling. His strongest sense is feeling. It's his emotions. So even though he has a defined solar plexus, his cognition, what prepares his body to receive something, is his feelings. It's his emotions. So of course, feeling for him was the secret because that was his cognition. I don't think it had anything to do with his defined solar plexus. He still had an emotional wave, You know, his emotions came and went as they did for whatever his wave was, right? But his cognition is where the feeling came from. Staying in the feeling of the wish fulfilled came from his cognition, not necessarily from his solar plexus. So I was like, my theory can still stand, because he had the undefined ajna, repetition. He had the undefined spleen, man was fearless. He had a defined solar plexus, which means he didn't really have to focus on feeling from his solar plexus standpoint. But the focusing on feeling incorporated his cognition. It incorporated his strongest sense. So then I was like, okay, well, feeling really was the secret for him, because that was his cognition. So then I started to think, okay, what about me? I have an external vision cognition. So it's outer vision, right? And I started to think of all the things that I've manifested. Did my cognition, my outer vision cognition, meaning I need to see something in my physical reality, like in front of me, I need to see it to prepare my body, right, for receiving. Has that come into play in my manifestations? And y'all, there's two instances. These two things that I always come back to whenever I doubt manifestation, or I get worried, or I feel my fears, right? I always come back to these two instances when I manifested something. Number one is my apartment. I wanted to live in a specific apartment building in a very specific unit with a very specific floor plan. That is what I wanted. And I got it, right? Prior to that manifesting, I toured that apartment. I toured the exact unit that I wanted with the exact floor plan that I wanted. And every single day I was watching videos of people who live there, or, you know, the promo videos that the apartment buildings make to get people to want to live there. I was watching those videos every single day. Every single day I was watching those videos over and over again. I could have acted out those videos myself, which with how many times I watched them, I literally could have acted them out. Every single day I was watching them. I toured. I took a video of myself touring the apartment, and I would watch that every day. I was seeing it. I was literally seeing it in my physical reality, this apartment that I wanted, and I got it. And the second thing that I manifested was singing, rapping actually, in a club. Like an actual club where people go to dance, right? It wasn't a karaoke bar or anything like that. I was out with my sisters, and I was like, for some reason, I want to get up on that stage and I want to sing Baby Got Back. I don't know why, but I do. So I'm standing in this club and I'm staring at the stage. I'm staring at the DJ booth. And I'm like, he's going to call me up and I'm going to go up there and sing Baby Got Back. But I'm staring at the stage. I'm seeing the stage, right? I kid you not, 10 minutes later, he pointed me out specifically and brought me up on stage, put on Baby Got Back, and I rapped the whole song in the club. But I was seeing the stage. And as I'm going back in my head of all the things I've manifested, I always saw them. Physically saw them, not visualizing. Like I saw the thing in my physical reality. And I was like, oh shit. So now I'm thinking cognition has a bigger impact on manifestation when we're talking about human design than I thought. So I am doing an experiment. Based on my cognition, I'm going to add certain things into my routine just to see, just to see if it works. So that is my discovery. That is what the conclusion that I came to last night, and I wanted to come on here and share it all with you. If you would like for me to do a video on the different cognitions, if you're interested in applying this to your specific practice, I can definitely do that. Let me know if you want that in the comments, just to say, yes, we want the cognition video, yeah. But that is it. If you have not seen my videos on quantum physics, manifestation, and human design, I will link those up below. Wow, that's funny. I will link those in a card, and I will see you in the next video.